When it comes to the perfect everyday watch, you want something that is simple, comfortable, versatile enough for every situation that you might come across, and a watch that's sturdy enough to withstand the test of time and anything you throw at it. Cue the Hamilton Khaki Mechanical. The Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical is a field watch that is purpose-built, so its bold and legible design isn't just for aesthetics. In the military, where careful precision and coordination of different activations are required, having a precise watch on your wrist was especially important, predating some modern technology that we have today. And the modern Hamilton Khaki Field is not just a representation of military field watches, it actually was used in the military. Today it's released as a relatively affordable and great Swiss-made mechanical watch that you can wear, kind of own a piece of history, and really enjoy doing so. So let's take a little bit of closer look at the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical. This is the 38mm variant with a obviously 38mm case width, a case thickness of just 9.5mm, a stainless steel matte sandblasted case, and of course the beautiful Hamilton caliber H50 movement. Now when I say beautiful, I don't mean beautiful in its aesthetics, because there is only a stainless steel case back, so you're not going to be able to marvel at the movement through this beauty. However, in terms of its simplicity and general efficiency, an 80-hour power reserve is nothing to scoff at, partially aided by its slower 21,600 beat rate. Still, in everyday use, that is more than adequate and still produces a nice, decently smooth sweeping second hand, and its lower beat frequency does require less frequent service intervals. The Hamilton caliber H50 movement also has hacking and hand winding. This is a fully mechanical hand wind only watch, so no automatic module in this watch at all. But that is one of the reasons why the thickness is able to be kept under 10mm, and is definitely one of the most important, or just generally better selling points about this watch. And you'll see a bit later when actually thrown on the wrist how that actually contributes to how it wears and feels. On this watch, we have a scratch-resistant sapphire crystal and a water resistance of just 50 meters, which is maybe suitable for washing your hands, getting caught in the rain, but not so much for swimming, so you'd have to upgrade to the automatic Hamilton Khaki Field for that. No date function, this is a time-only watch, but there is definitely beauty in its simplicity. Sometimes you don't want to have to deal with the fuss of, having to set the day or date, and just having a much cleaner dial is sometimes the watch that you just simply want to grab for. Now, when taking a look at watches, usually I do tend to kind of focus in on the dial, especially early on in the review, but I think so much about this watch is kind of in its case, not only in its case design, and we'll get to that, but in its beautiful and purpose-built finish. The case isn't all sandblasted, so very matte finish, and I think that does a lot to play into the utilitarian vibe of this watch. So in the military, of course, if you're kind of hiding or kind of being stealthy, any sort of polished elements will really give you away. So having something that's all matte like the Hamilton Khaki was not just a functional choice, it's kind of a necessity. And again, this is a watch that's built not just for fashion, but primarily for function, and then reinterpreted for a modern audience. But when it comes to purpose-built and tactical watches, this watch is as legit as it gets when it comes to feeling like you are wearing a true military watch on your wrist, and that's because you are. So in short, the sandblasted case is done impeccably. The finish is very smooth and does a great job at hiding scratches and nicks and dings from everyday wear. I've been wearing this piece for about a year now, on and off, not every single day, but at least a couple of times a week, and it has barely a scratch to show for it. Other than that, the design of the case is relatively simple. Again, playing into a utilitarian kind of design, everything here is very purposeful and built with intent. There's nothing here that doesn't need to be. A small bezel leads very precisely into some rather thin but slightly elongated lugs, which by the way have drilled lugs. Thank you, Hamilton, for including this. This makes strap changes an absolute breeze, although I've been resorting to quick change or quick release straps lately, like this canvas that just works so well on this piece. More about that in a bit. But just having it is always a nice touch, especially on a watch that's a little bit less sporty, a little bit more utilitarian, a little bit more everyday and kind of hard wearing. The crown is quite large and feels great to the touch. Perfect because you are going to be hand winding this thing quite a bit. Again, fully mechanical. So with an 80-hour power reserve, that means on a full wind about every 3 days.
The crown is quite sizable and just overall comfortable and easy to use. Of course, this watch does have hacking and hand winding by simply pulling out the crown, just one click. And finally, a stainless steel case back, which is nothing too impressive, but lasered with Hamilton's logo. Now I know on this watch I said we're going to be taking a look at the dial after, but the dial is definitely not an afterthought. Again, everything here very purposeful, and everything here is here because it serves a purpose. The main hour markers, quite legible and bold, applied with luminescent, along with the 24-hour markers, so to easily tell military AM PM time. Maybe not as necessary in an everyday application, but still definitely plays into the traditional field watch aesthetic. We do have minute markers and cream loom applied hash marks at every minute and then every 5 minutes with a triangle that is again loomed in the same cream that we have on the beautiful, quite utilitarian handset. The cream fill loom does do a good job to add a little bit of an aged and almost weathered, worn look to this watch, but without being overly obvious or a little too over the top. And of course, a white sweeping second hand really adds a lot of contrast and makes it extremely easy to read the time down to a split second. Quite difficult to show a true representation of the loom on camera, but you can be assured that it's even better than it actually displayed here. So let's take a look at the dimensions of this watch and throw it on the wrist and see how it wears. Again, as stated, about 38 millimeters in diameter, just over 47.5 in lug to lug, a 20 millimeter lug width, and a 9.3 millimeter thickness, including the slightly domed sapphire crystal. Now let's throw it on the wrist and see how it wears. Today I'm wearing my beautiful and just absolutely gorgeous Orient Bambino. This is a watch that truthfully I haven't been giving too much wear, just with so many watches in my collection. Just a beautiful, simple dress watch sometimes gets overlooked, but I mean, it really is perfect at what it's trying to do, and it's kind of the perfect execution of an affordable but still awesome dress watch. Link in the description below. Taking a look at the Hamilton Khaki on my 6.5-inch wrist, we could see that it wears just so beautifully. In a day-to-day environment, its low profile and under 10 millimeter thickness makes it extremely comfortable and, lets your wrist move around freely. You may notice that I'm wearing it on my right wrist, and that's not for any reason in particular. Sometimes I do, because some watches, depending on which hole of a strap the watch will fit on, might fit better on one wrist or another. A simple matter of personal preference, but you could see this thing wears absolutely beautifully. I mean, it really is kind of out of the way and very low profile, and that's what you want out of a field watch. Something that's not intrusive, very out of the way, very comfortable for all-day wear, and just extremely legible. Now its lug to lug at just over 47 millimeters is definitely not large by any means, so you should be able to fit a wide variety of wrists, but I do like that the slightly almost elongated lugs do kind of balance out the somewhat a little smaller in terms of modern dimensions 38 millimeter case width, which I think is not small by any means, but the almost 48 millimeter lug to lug does really let this watch wear a little bit almost rectangular, and wear really, really well, still have some presence on the wrist without being too big or too small. And of course, its 20 millimeter lug width is the most common size and just perfectly proportional with the 38 millimeter case width, and just makes it extremely easy to find straps like this really nice canvas strap that I have on. Now, we briefly mentioned earlier the movement inside the Hamilton Caliber H50, which is based upon the Swiss ETA 2801-2 movement, containing 17 joules and of course beating at 21,600 beats per hour. Of course, this watch has an impressive power reserve of 80 hours. Hand winding the watch itself feels really, really nice and smooth. This is definitely one of the better mechanical hand winding watches I've ever had the pleasure of hand winding. Partially because of how thick and kind of nicely knurled the crown is, so it's very easy to get some nice purchase on that crown when winding it up. But in general, the movement is buttery smooth when winding it. There's absolutely no grittiness or grinding whatsoever. So let's talk price and kind of alternatives on the market. So between $300 and $400, depending on which exact model you go with, where you buy it, etc. By the way, links in the description below, affiliate links. I get a small kickback, full disclosure, but don't feel obligated to buy from those links by any means. So in general, I think that's a very, very fair price point for what this is. I mean, in general, under $500 and maybe even under $1,000, it really is one of the best bang for your bucks watches you can get. Are there cheaper watches out there that serve a similar purpose, like the Seiko 5 Field Watch? Absolutely. But if you just want to spend as little as possible on a really great watch, I would actually urge you to consider something like this. They also come in black, green, blue. So, and honestly, in terms of just wearing, pure wearing experience, I get just as much enjoyment out of my Seiko 5 as I do the Hamilton Khaki Field. But this one gives me a certain sense of kind of like almost purism, kind of fanatic kind of enjoyment. I don't know. Basically, that means I played way too much Call of Duty growing up and more recently Escape from Tarkov. So too many military first-person shooter games, and this one kind of feels like I'm wearing a true military watch on my wrist. Other than its slightly underrepresented 50mm water resistance, I mean, this watch I think is extremely versatile in its design, obviously super durable, but you can really throw this watch on a variety of different types of straps, and it can really serve you for pretty much anything life throws at you. If you don't want a mechanical movement that kind of turns you off, then there's the Hamilton Khaki Field Automatic. I know what you're saying. Anthony, why did you take so long to break this thing out? Well, I'll do another video comparing the two a little bit more in depth. This one I really wanted to highlight one of my personal favorite watches in my watch rotation, not just recently, but for the past year. There's just something about the pureness and the simplicity of this watch that I just keep coming back to. And really, if I had to kind of pick one, the mechanical would be the one to stay in my collection. There's no doubt in my mind.
Overall, the Hamilton Khaki Mechanical Field is a purpose-built military tool watch that has stood the test of time, and I'm really glad to be able to add it to my arsenal and my collection of sort of owning a piece of history and being able to wear that on my wrist. And really, I get a lot of enjoyment out of wearing this watch. It's comfortable, it's versatile. You can wear it day, night, on different types of straps. It looks awesome. You could dress it up, dress it down. You give it a nice hand wind, very therapeutic, and the hand winding feels actually rather awesome. Even if you have luxury watches, I don't think the Hamilton Khaki Field would look out of place or feel out of place comparing them side by side. So thank you so much for watching. Check out the description below for all the links for the watches shown in this video and to the article on the blog if there is one. We may do one, may not, but check out the blog in the description below, all the social channels. Thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe for more. And if you did enjoy this video, would really appreciate if you could hit that like button to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time.